What is up, everybody? Colin here for another Shut Up, No One Cares, Get Back to Work podcast. A bite-sized show, 10 minutes or less, about big ideas, first principles, something you can tune into on a regular basis that's going to help you become a better human. That's my goal, is to help you become a better human, because that's how we're going to make the world a better place. The more better humans we have running around, the more we're going to have better humans leading, maybe not so better humans, to become better humans. And then that's going to be a ripple effect. We're going to pay it forward by first working on ourselves and becoming the best version we can, and then sharing that legacy with those around us and our children and the next generation. And hopefully we can reverse the future prospects for our species and for my son's generation, because right now some of the things are not really headed in the right direction. Today's big idea is focus. I'm going to read for you the quote, and then we're going to get into it, and then I'm going to do the daily 6, and I'm going to let you go back to your life. Focus is the art of knowing what to ignore, and it's the key to success. And we got this quote from my boy Bruce Lee, one of my childhood idols. The successful warrior is the average man with laser-like focus. I love that. That's so awesome. Think about the idea of the sun. If you take a magnifying glass and you take the sun's rays and you magnify it on a specific point, it will burn. You could create fire. Think about this as it applies to your focus, your effort, and the projects you're working on. The more projects that you take on and the more areas in which your focus is pulled, the wider you're going and the less energy is being directed towards making it burn. And making it burn in this analogy is getting results. If you spend all your energy spread out amongst a bunch of projects, well, you're going to make micro progress on all those projects. Whereas if you take one or two and you take all that micro progress and you put it into one and you concentrate that effort and that focus, well, that project or the very few that you're going to take on are going to be able to go further and faster. And that's the power of focus. That's focus just from the projects that you're taking on. There's also other focus as it relates to actual work. And I just realized I cut my hand. I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but I was prepping for another video and brought a big thing of ghee out, like the big I think it was like $20 or $30 things of ghee, and I took too many things. Almost a perfect analogy for what I'm talking about today. I had too many things, trying to hold too many things to prevent the trips, and I ended up taking more time because I dropped the ghee. It went everywhere, cut my hand, and hopefully I can salvage at least half of it. I've even lost money in that transaction, and all I was trying to do was save a trip. It's kind of a good way to think about this type of stuff. So when you try to do too much, you end up doing either little, none, or you regress. When it comes to actual work, it's a second prong of focus. When you think about focus, you have to ask yourself, well, what is the opposite of focus? The opposite of focus is distraction. If you eliminate distraction, you have focus. When you eliminate everything but the one thing you're doing, you have focus. This is, like, I know it's easier said than done, and it's a habit, it takes practice, etc. But if you simply put yourself in front of the thing you want to do and you eliminate everything else, you turn off your notifications, you close your tabs, maybe even just turn off the internet completely. Airplane mode is for pros, as I like to say. And then you do the one thing that's in front of you. You have focus. So you need to first, when you're actually working, first focus on the fact that anything that is outside of the one thing you're supposed to be doing should be eliminated. So get rid of a distraction and you'll have focus. Most people think about focus and they think about hacks or tools or tips or timers or any of these things. These things can all help, of course, but if you don't have the foundational principle of removing distraction, you don't have focus. So nothing else you do will matter. So remove distraction and you get focus. That applies to actually work and how you direct your eyeballs and your mind and you actually go deep into a topic. Of course, focus can apply to the projects you take on, the things you say yes to. It also applies to what you're physically doing in the moment on a day-to-day basis when you're doing something like deep work, where you focus during that period of time on one thing at hand and nothing else is around you. So there's two prongs here that I want you to take away from today's show. It's one, you should be taking on less projects, as few as possible. You should be putting your energy only into the things that have the greatest potential return and or the things that you like doing the most, and then go deep as you can into those. And then as it relates to the work you do, when you're doing work, do one thing at a time, close everything else, remove all distractions. Do not convince yourself you can multitask or bounce around. In fact, when I'm doing work, I feel the most anxious when I have a bunch of things open on my screen and I'm trying to do this thing and that thing. And I have this bad tendency. In fact, the more I think about it and talk about it, I need to work on this. But I have this tendency to open a bunch of tabs. And then because tabs load slow, I then go to find something else to do or to load or whatever. And what it does is it just keeps splitting my mindset and what I'm focused on back and forth. And it causes this angst, this anxiety. And I need to start doing that. I need to open a tab if I want to pay a bill or if I'm going to do something and just wait until it gets opened and ignore everything else. So an actual thing that I could do, and that maybe you want to do as well, is when I have tasks I'm working on, Don't show anything else on my screen. So just create maybe a new text document and have one thing right there. Copy paste the one thing you're going to do, close all your other tabs, close all your other browsers or apps or whatever, and then have that one thing showing on that document, or maybe on a piece of paper. That would be even better. And then do just that, one thing at a time. And that's another important principle of focus, doing one thing at a time. When you remove distraction and you get down to one thing, removing anything around that is a distraction. So anything but one thing is distraction you have to remove. So this is a topic that I could go on and on and on about, and it requires practice and mindset, and you have to think about it, and you have to be vigilant, and you have to find ways to improve. You have to bust through your lack of awareness or your bias or your perceptions that might be keeping you from being your most productive. Just like when I have this idea that I want to open a bunch of tabs because I want to save time and I want to load things faster, whatever, I've realized that that's not a good strategy, and that I just end up shooting myself in the foot. Or if I try to avoid taking one step from the other room into here because I carry too many things, and then I drop it, it goes everywhere. I wasted money, time, and I cut my hand, wasted blood. Big idea. Think about it. Where can you say no to things? Where can you eliminate things? Where can you completely kill things that are just a distraction? And then when you're sitting down in front of your computer or your desk or wherever you're doing your work, what can you remove so that you have one thing in front of you at a time and nothing else? That's a big idea. Let's get to the daily 6. All right, daily tip or recommendation. It definitely applies to what we're talking about today, but it's the idea of a deep work routine. I've told people over the years that have asked me about success or work or building or business or ideas or whatever. The core, if you want to build something, if you want to do anything on your own, the core comes down to 2 hours a day. 2 hours a day of deep work where you remove everything else, no distractions, nobody can find you, nobody can interrupt you, and you have just the thing, the work you're going to do in front of you. There's a book written by Cal Newport on this topic. He coined it deep work. I recommend it to everybody. I recommend you read it today. Go get it on Audible. Might even be on Scribe.com, 2 of the services I use for my audiobooks. Read it, figure out ways to implement it. If you start with 30 minutes a day where you lock yourself somewhere, you can't really go to the library right now, but you go to a place where it's completely secluded, and maybe even you go to places without internet if you're writing or doing things like that, because the internet is a distraction. Figure out that routine and then protect it at all costs. I say a lot of times things will change your life, but this is one of those things that will. And I say that, and I'm not lying or exaggerating, because we're talking about big things here. I like to think about big things, and I like to always consider like the things that people want. And most people want success and autonomy and all these things and health, and then what they do or don't do. So I'm always thinking about that equation and how to help people with that. When it comes to success in building something, business, side hustle, writing something, a book, a play, a startup, a business plan, whatever you're building, it's going to come down to what you're doing during your deep work time. And if you can build a 2 hours a day deep work routine, you can accomplish anything, even if you have a day job. It is amazing what you can get done in 2 focused hours a day. So I highly recommend getting the book Deep Work by Cal Newport and reading it ASAP. Daily book recommendation, we just did that. And then daily health tip. Again, deep work. Deep work? How is that a health tip? I'm going to tell you. Personally, when I get more deep work done in a day, I'm more calm, I feel more accomplished, and I don't have that nagging anxiety that I have to be productive. When I don't get deep work, when I'm bouncing around from task to task, when I'm getting interrupted, when all these things coalesce into just having a day that feels not as good or not as productive, I'm irritable, I'm more impatient, and that rubs off on when I'm around my family. It also makes me just less happy of a person. Finding the work that matters and then protecting that on a daily basis, I think, is the key to longevity, happiness, and success. And having purpose, if you look at all the longevity research, having purpose is paramount to living a long, sustainable, healthy life. So finding your deep work routine is going to help you more than just in your work and accomplishing it and success. It's going to help you be a better human, be a healthier human, and be a happier human. Daily cooking tip. Do this. Cook 2 pounds of ground beef. Use seasoning, salt, maybe some avocado oil or butter, and eat a meal, right? Because you made some, might as well eat it. Then put the rest in the fridge. Those are great leftovers for when you need meals in a bind. Now, this tip isn't over. The most important thing, when you pull that ground beef out of the fridge to eat it again, fire up a pan. I use a little 8-inch cast iron pan. Get it nice and hot. Add a little bit of oil or butter maybe. Put that ground beef in the pan. Reheat it to the point where it gets a little bit of color. Like basically recook it, refry it. And then if you want, melt some cheese, add a little bit more spices or whatever taste, and then take it out, and it is delicious. In fact, I tend to like the ground beef that's been cooked twice better than when I first cook it in the pan for the first meal. It's a secret to heating leftovers. And if you have roasts or any leftover meat like that and you can always reheat it, game changer. Daily thoughts about money. Set up your investments on auto investing once a month withdrawal to either put into your account or your investments or whatever it is. There's a lot of ways to do this. There's like Wealthfront, purchase plans that buy certain companies and they automatically buy every month. The key is you want to set it and forget it. It's really amazing when you log into some account that you've been investing in. I actually have 2 set up for 2 companies that I've been investing in for about 4 years now. And I recently looked at what the balance was. It was like $100 or $200 a month or whatever it is I'm putting in. And I had $10,000 of stocks each in these 2 companies. I wasn't really paying attention. I didn't even realize I had that. In times like now, if I was in a money bind, that would be pretty awesome to have. It's also how you long-term invest. You have to be able to set it and forget it. And if you aren't putting away money every month for rainy day and investments, you're making yourself very susceptible. And if this virus has taught us anything, it's most people are not prepared. Most people keep just enough money and just enough food in their house for a week or 2. And then they go out into society, into the economy, and they get what else they need. Or they go to work and do work and get a paycheck, and then they buy what they need. That is very fragile. I hope for the better after we come through all this, that we become more prepared as a society and think more long-term and invest and do things. I mean, the savings rate in this country is like single-digit percentages. It's a joke. It really is. That's going to be it for today's show. I hope you do something with some of these ideas. Deep work, auto investing, reheating ground beef, all helpful tips that you can use to build better habits and be a better human. I'm Colin Stuckert, and I will see you in the next one.